Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday, November the 4th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And the chat room is open, and I did pop the link in there to Soul Expressions Abuse Recovery. That's the website that I'm interested in right now, and taking a look through mainly the inner child healing work on her website. But she's got some great stuff there. Becky, she's a therapist and a counselor. She's mainly talking about child sexual abuse or sexual abuse. And the website's mainly geared for women, but we all know that it's not just women who've experienced sexual abuse, right? So, yeah, I like some of the stuff that she has to say. She's coming she's coming from a survivor's point of view, and I like that. And the inner child healing work is really what I'm working on right now. So I just want to kind of go through and look at a few things that she had to say there. And so yeah, we'll pick up where we left off yesterday. Thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. And you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. You know, I'm talking about abuse. You know, I'm not a counselor or a therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio. So, you know, you have to listen at your own discretion, because abuse is a sensitive subject. Any type of topics surrounding abuse can bother people, trigger survivors, and just could make you uncomfortable. So you have to listen to all my shows at your own discretion and know what's good for you to listen to. And if you think that the topics of abuse might bother you, you have to turn it off, right? It's your discretion. You know, ultimately it is your discretion. So young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show. You know, have an adult, you know, someone who's an adult who's older who can help you make a decision, like whether or not it's age appropriate for you, because this is not for younger children, and none of my shows are for younger children. It's all adult based, you know, mature material, right? So, you know, do the right thing and learn how to keep yourself safe online, and you know what's good for you to listen to, right? And if you're under the age of 18, just have a parent. Hopefully you have a parent or somebody in your life who's an adult who can listen to the show with you, and then they can help you make a decision whether it's age appropriate for you, right? So we'll get right into this, and this is quite interesting stuff she's talking about here, the inner child work, healing your inner child, and it's from Soul Expressions, abuserecovery.com, and it's on her website there. She's got tons and tons of web pages on the left-hand side of the page. Like when you go to that website, her website there, you can see that she just has a lot of information there about all kinds of different things in healing, and you know, really working through the whole process. And you can actually talk to her, like if she's available and she's online. Her little the little icon will say that she's online, and you can speak with her, so you can chat with her. So that's awesome. It's a great support for people, you know, for mainly especially for women who have been who've had to deal with either child sexual abuse or some type of sexual abuse, right? So it's really good stuff, and I like what she's done here, and it's great. It's another resource for people, right? So thanks for tuning in, and we'll get right into this. And yesterday we were talking about where we left off. There was, she said, an adult with a wounded child inside is an adult who never healed from their abuse, and they either ignored it and suppressed it or acted it out in unhealthy ways. And she says, regardless, you have learned along the way from your childhood that, number one, you can't trust adults. Number two, life isn't safe. Number three, my parents can't protect me. Number four, I'm alone. Number five, God doesn't love me, and many other negative things. So she's just going through and talking about, you know, what happens when a child's been abused, you know, the trauma, and you know, how a child will ultimately learn to cope and learn to build in these self-protective self-protection measures, which is maybe to put up walls or just to dissociate, just any number of things, you know, because the trauma is just too intense for children who have been abused and who are being abused, and they have to adapt somehow, you know. And so that's what we were really talking about yesterday, just going into that. And I was talking about, you know, number one, you can't trust adults, and number two, life isn't safe, and I was kind of going to go through some more of these, you know. Children who are being abused, especially if they're not getting any help, you know, they're quite their outlook on life is that life isn't safe, you know. And I mean, that's the truth of it. Life isn't safe, right? We all know this. It's just the fact that when a child really needs to know that within the confines of the four walls of this house, wherever they're living, with their parents, you know, their caregivers, that's where it should be safe. That's where a child should be feeling secure. You know, because that's where the child is, you know, hopefully getting their needs met, you know. And when a child is not getting their needs met and they're being abused in some way, those walls and those people in that home really represent um, an early start to knowing, that hey, life isn't safe. You can't even trust your own family. You know what I mean? And that's really sad. That's really true. People hurt people. You know, I mean, family members are always hurting family members. I mean, even if they're not really, so violent or abusive, so many times family members will hurt another family member because they're the closest ones to them, and quite often that's who gets hurt. And also just the dynamics of the family relationships, the family coping mechanisms, right? Just there may be someone in the family that is abusive. Maybe they're not physically abusing everybody, but they may be doing some, emotional type abuse, psychological type abuse, and that's hard on a person, right? It's extremely hard on children and partners, husbands, wives, whoever, boyfriend, girlfriend. It's but people do. They abuse their families, they abuse other people. And this is really sad because that's why I really liked Robert Burney's stuff. Robert Burney, he's a codependence counselor. He's a grief therapist. He's really knowledgeable really about codependency and inner child healing work. And we went through his stuff a while back, and Robert Burney's awesome. And he's just talking about society being, as a whole, society being sick, I mean, anybody who thinks it's okay to hurt somebody, there's something wrong with them, But look at our world. I mean, take a look at the big picture. I mean, people are hurting each other all over the world. And the sad thing is nobody wants to be accountable for their behaviors. That's where I drew the line, because I'm like, okay, if I want other people to be accountable for their behaviors, that means I have to be accountable for my behaviors. So that means that I have to watch what I say. I have to watch what I do. I can't just all about, well, everybody should treat me right, but then I can go ahead and just do whatever I want and not feel that I should owe anybody an apology or feel that I could ever make a mistake. So many people are living this very mentally ill existence, right? It is a mental illness, actually. It's classified as mental illness. Where people have this view that they are perfect. They never make mistakes, and so they won't apologize. And because that would mean something was wrong with them, and they would be lesser than, and they'd have to deal with it, and they'd have to be like, oh well, I don't make mistakes, I'm perfect. So many times, people will hurt people, and they just don't care. They're like, whatever, it wasn't my fault. They won't take any responsibility, and that's where, I'm kind of, 4.5 years ago, actually, well, about October of 2009. Yeah, that's October of 2009. That's when I started writing my blog. Not so fond memories growing up in an abusive home, and really that was why I wrote my blog. I thought, what, my parents, they didn't do any time. They were busted on child abuse charges, but there was no justice for us. There was no justice. I mean, my parents got away with what they did, and my brother got away with what he did to me. And I thought, they should have been held accountable because they weren't going to be accountable. You know what I mean? They weren't accountable for what they did at all. They never ever said, that was really bad. We should have done a better job. Like, we should have treated our children well. Like, my parents never ever took a stance where, they felt bad about what they did to their children and what they did to each other. It was always, well, it was your mother. She was insane. That's what my dad would say, and it was her fault. She was horrible, and she caused me to behave the way that I did. And then my mom would be the same way. Well, it was all your dad, And when my mom was living, right, she was always blaming my dad for the whole thing. And they even did that in the courts. When they went to court and they were busted on child abuse charges, they told the judge, my dad told the judge, well, it's their mother. Their mother's the one that's abusing them. And then the judge talked to my mom, and my mom was like, oh, it was their father. Their father's just abusing them. And then the older siblings that were quite a bit older were able to talk to the judge, and they said, no, it's both of our parents abusing us. And so the judge was like, because neither one of my parents wanted to take responsibility for their actions. And so this whole issue of, life isn't safe, well, that's true, because people will not take accountability for their for what they do. People will hurt people, maim people, torture people, rape people, kill people, and just be generally ugly to people, and hurt people and use people, and they don't care. It's like, well, too bad. And then the rest of the world says, why are people like this? It's really bad. Like, we all have to, like, the world's never going to change unless people change the way they behave, right? But that's why Robert Burney talks about the whole picture. He's like, society is very, very mentally ill because we're all doing things that are based on some very, very unhealthy behavioral styles. You know what I mean? Like, and it's sad, but it's true. So you can fix yourself, but you can't fix the world. And that's the truth, right? So I can watch what I'm doing, and I can watch my behaviors, and I can make sure that I'm going to treat people right. But I can't guarantee somebody else is going to do that for me. And growing up as abused, life isn't safe, sort of thing. As a child, I mean, I knew that, because I loved my parents. I did for a long time. I loved both my parents, and they when I was really little, I used to tell them I love you, Daddy, and when I was a little kid, right, I love you, Mommy, and I'd get slapped in the face, get away from me, you little rotten, whatever, right, and they turned me into themselves, basically, is what they did, because I didn't start out that way, you know what I mean? I started out as an innocent child, and was quickly turned into them, right, and that's why now my personality's formed, you know what I mean? Because it was formed from infancy, really. I mean, I can't really go back and get that innocence. Like, there's no way for me to do that. So what I have to do now is learn, try to learn how to get some of that back, But it's not easy. But the thing is I can definitely watch my behaviors, you know what I mean, and hold other people accountable too, especially people in life and relationships. It's like, no, we're all going to behave ourselves here, and we're all going to do the right things. And if I hurt somebody, I need to apologize, and I need to try to make it right, And I kind of expect the same from other people, because that's just the total opposite the way that I grew up. In my home, people got hurt, and there was no apologies and no remorse, and it was like, that's what you get, that's what you deserve. You deserve worse, So if you keep it up, I'm gonna kill you. That's what my mother would tell me all the time. She'd beat the crap out of me, and then she'd be like, you get a smile on your face right now. I'd be crying, bleeding. She'd be like, you put a smile on your face right now, and I'd be like, I knew if I didn't smile, she was going to kick the crap out of me. I was like, oh Jesus, I can't, this beating is going to get way out of control, So I'd have to sit there and smile, I mean, that's a horrible situation for a child, not being able to express the pain and grief and horror of being abused, because they have to put a smile on their face after they've been beaten or abused, and that's really how we grew up. That's how we were forced to behave, because my mother was mentally ill, right? And another, like number 3, she says, my parents can't protect me. Well, that's the truth of it, especially if your parents are actually the ones that are abusing you. That's the truth of it. For me, my parents weren't my abusers, so. But other people who have been abused, somebody else in the family or somebody else, possibly neighbor or a distant relative or something, and they go and they, try to get help from their parents. I know so many people, survivors, and I know their stories. It just kind of, sets them up to think, yeah, not even my own parents can protect me. It's pretty obvious, if somebody abuses a child that isn't the parent. Then the child's going to think, well, this is horrible, because where's my safety? Where's my security? My own parents can't even protect me. Because that's what children are looking for. Children need a few basic, they need a few basic things when they're growing up. They need to know that they're safe. They need to know that they're secure with their parents, and they need to know that they have a secure attachment with their parents. They need to know that they're loved and welcomed into the world, and that their parents love them, whoever their parents are, or caregivers, whoever the people are that are bringing up and raising this child. They need to know that they're safe within that confine of the relationship, and within those 4 walls, they should be safe. And when a child's being abused and living in a violent situation, they're not safe. So I mean, I knew that I wasn't safe around my parents. My parents were the ones who were causing the problem, but I knew I was also not safe around other people too, because I'd been, attempted kidnaps 5 times. I was nearly kidnapped, and was pretty lucky actually to have people watching out for me, other people, not my parents, and strangers and neighbors. So yeah, this is the thing. It's really something. When children can't even, they feel that their parents can't even protect them. But that's really the truth of it. In reality, parents can do, 100% awesome job of trying to protect their children, and things will still happen to children. And that's the sad part. You can't protect your children enough. That's why I'm always talking about child abuse prevention at night on Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, right? Because I'm really trying to get the word out there for people that if you have children, you can't even protect them enough, And that's why you really have to be diligent, because there are so many sick people out there. It's just really unbelievable. And people, these abusers, they don't wear signs on their head saying, "Oh, I'm an abuser, I'm a child sexual abuser, or I'm a pedophile, I'm this or that." Then they live next door. Believe it or not, you know what I mean. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. So these people don't wear signs. They generally fit in with society quite well, and they're actually really normally very much regarded as decent people, by everybody around them. And then when they get busted, they're like, everybody's like, "Oh my God, did you hear? So and so got brought up on charges for child pornography or whatever." These people are somebody's neighbor. They may have watched your children. You you know what I mean? Like, be very, very careful. There's a lot of sick people out there. But yeah, this just sets up an unsafe world for the children, right? You can't trust adults. Life isn't safe. My parents can't protect me. These are all realities, really. But children need to feel some type of security in the home, right? And when they're not, it really sets them up for a lot of fear and a lot of a lot of problems, right? And another one is I'm alone. I know I grew up the last of 7 children, and so there was 9 of us, but there wasn't 9 of us in the home because 2 of my siblings had moved out. One of my oldest sister, who was the oldest, Mary, moved out at the age of 17. She was gone. The abuse was pretty bad right around then, and that's just a couple of years later. My parents were brought up on child abuse charges, and my dad had been abusing her, and she got married right away and left the house and left the home, and they moved to California, and they were gone. My brother that was next in age to her, the same thing. He was 16 years old at the time when my parents were brought up on child abuse charges, and he was gone. He just left. He was just in the streets, So there was 5 children in the home when I was born. I was number 5 in the home, but there were 7 of us, and I felt very much alone in that home. Even though there was potentially 7 people around at any given time with my parents there. And I shared a bedroom because we lived in these small little, we were under the poverty line. Actually we were $2 over the poverty line, but we really we didn't have anything, you know what I mean? We're pretty poor. And so, we all shared rooms because we lived in these tiny little houses. My mom slept on the couch. My dad basically always had his own room because my mom made sure of it because she didn't want him to have she didn't want him to have access to her, first of all. And she didn't want him to have access to any of the kids either. So, she wasn't sleeping with him. So I think she was and that's why I think my dad sexually used my brother. And because my mother had stopped sleeping with him, years before I was born, at least 8, probably 9 years before I was even born, because the doctors told her, "You have any more children, you're going to die," So when my brother was born, he's 7 years old. One of my brothers is 7 years older than me, and my mom got pregnant 5 more times after that. That's all forced rape. My dad was forcing himself on her, raping my mother, and 3 of these babies lived to a certain point, and then they were stillborn. So that's why my mom was always saying, "Well, you should have died with the stillborn babies. You should have died with those other babies that died." Right? My mother used to tell me stuff like that, and because I was born out of rape, so she hated me. She didn't. She couldn't love me, and she used to tell me that. She'd be like, "I can't love you. I can't love you. You're a rape child, right?" And then when I was 8 years old and I was raped, I was a rape child raped. You want to talk about a mind flip? I was just completely. I really felt dead. You know what I mean? And by the time I was 10, I was dead. It was just there's no sense in even pretending to live in this environment. You know what I mean? I'm dead. My spirit, my spirit, and my spirituality and my whole sense of being and existing and of who I was, was dead. I thought I should just be dead. My body is still moving around, but man, I'm gone. And so that's a horrible way to be. It's a horrible way to live, right? Then I started doing a whole lot of drugs to try to sort of medicate, and a lot of different kinds of drugs, psychedelic, and every kind of drug I could get my hands on, really. And I think actually I'm not sure, but I think even a psychiatrist would probably say that that was a coping mechanism, and it probably did save my life. But I would never ever condone drug use. Like my two brothers did drugs and they killed themselves. Um, that's the problem with that. You know what I mean? One of my brothers was a cocaine addict, the one that raped me and sexually. He was a cocaine addict and he killed himself at the age of 33. And my other brother died of a drug overdose at the age of 43, just turning 43. He died of pills. He was always popping pills, too many pills, right? So he would overdose all the time. And so, yeah, not good at all. I was heading the same road too. And so, but I did drugs, a lot of drugs, because I couldn't cope. There was no way I couldn't cope with what had happened to me as a child. And I needed something. It wasn't that I was doing drugs saying, "Oh, I'll just kill myself, I'll just do these drugs." I needed something to get through the day because I knew I was going to have to go home that night, after school or whatever. In the summertime, I was going to have to go home at some point. And I wasn't wanted in that home. I was very much alone in that home. And my sister didn't want me because I was just crowding her space. She was 5 years older than me. She didn't want me in the same room with her. So she was not friendly. She was not a good sister, She was being abused too, so it's not like she wasn't being abused. She was but pushing me around too because she's a bit of a bully because she was like, "Look, you're just a nuisance to me. You're taking up my space." And she was stuck with me and because we always had to share a room pretty well until I got older. Because we didn't have any, we just lived in these small little tiny little houses, right? So it was a pretty harsh situation. I really felt unwanted. I was told I was unwanted, but I felt unwanted too, and I really felt that I didn't belong there, and I didn't belong anywhere. I didn't belong on the planet. So I felt very much alone in the world, and I still do today. I have a problem with relationships. You know what I mean? Like I form secure attachments really quickly, but I know, but part of me says that's not real. You know what I mean? And so it's it's not a happy thing for me to get into relationships with people or things. You know what I mean? Like relationships to me don't last. They don't, you know what I mean? And then I've got a lot of love in my heart. You know what I mean? It's come a long way. Like I've come a long way. Like when I was 13 and a half, when I was 13 and a half, I questioned whether or not, whether or not God even saw me. Because I used to scream at him, and especially when I hit around 14 and a half, 15, when my friend was killed, and I was in the backyard just cursing God. I was like, "Do you even see what's going on here? You're going to leave me in this mess. You should have took me years ago. And here you're going to take people around me, but you're not going to take me. You're going to let me live in this hell." It was a situation, but I started to feel that way really when around 13, that I was evil, and that. How could God even love me? You know what I mean? Like that I possibly, it's not that I thought that I deserved what I got, but I think it's just the fact that I felt the only place for me was hell, because I was born into hell, lived in hell, and so I had some huge spirituality problems even with my own self and my God. And so, I didn't have any real love in my heart, not anymore. Like it was gone. And I think I started out when I was a little kid with love in my heart, but it was gone. It was squashed, and it just didn't exist anymore. So I mean, even though I could have these relationships with my friends, and especially my friends that were helping me out because we were all being abused, we were all like a little family, and there was some type of love there, but it wasn't that deep love, that spiritual love that comes from inside the heart. And that didn't come to me until much later. And I realized, that when I really equated to my redemption, really, I don't talk a whole lot about this on this show, but May 22nd, 2007, that's when I felt love enter my heart, because I knew that my spirit had been brought back to me. You know what I mean? Like I really felt like something happened inside of me that changed my heart, because I could feel the hatred and the rage and the self-loathing and this evil stuff being pushed out and squeezed out by love and truth and light and peace and everything that is good started to come into my heart. That was about 4.5 years ago. And I mean, I could feel the difference, literally feel it physically as well as spiritually. And so, like I do have a lot of love for people, but as far as relationships go, like, I mean, I don't trust them. So it's like, hey, I love people, I'm great, I'll be glad to enter into relationships with people, working relationships, whatever it is. But I don't trust the relationship because I know, it just goes sour after a while. But I always keep that love in my heart anyway, because it's there now. It came, like God gave me that back. That's amazing. But anyway, that's another story. But the thing is, I know that I'm not alone right now. But when I was growing up, man, I literally felt like I was in hell, and that was hell, and that I was headed for eternal hell, because that's all I knew, and I thought there's no way that God's can see me, you know what I mean? I'm gonna this is my existence. I'm just gonna be in hell. I mean, I remember sitting in my classroom, like even in junior high and ninth grade, especially right in there, because that was some of the worst stuff. Right after I'd been sexually abused, and a lot of physical abuse from my mother right around the age of 10, 11, 12. I entered into high school at the age of 12. So my junior high school years were I was 11 and just turning 11, just turning 12 for those two junior high years, and that's when I really I really wasn't able to cope. Like I remember having a couple of friends in school and stuff, but I was so screwed up. Like you can even see from my pictures, my school pictures, like I was just so screwed up, and I didn't know whether I was coming or going. You know what I mean? It's like the abuse was just so bad, and so by the time I hit ninth, 10th grade, actually I was 13 when I was entering the 10th grade, and I just knew that I was different. And I carried myself this because I knew that I was different. I didn't care if people knew that I was doing drugs or getting high or whatever. I would just be so high all the time, and I would just be so wasted all the time because I felt like my life is a waste. I'm a waste. I'm on my own here. Really I was. I had a couple of good friends, but I was on my own and in this mess. And so today I still kind of, I have a tendency to feel that way still. Like I don't make a whole lot of friendships. I don't have a whole lot of people around in my life, and I like people and I love people. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm a total antisocial person, but I don't trust relationships. So I'm kind of like, well, it's like let's just keep this kind of, casual or whatever. I have met a few people like Gypsy Witch, who I consider to be, really one of the best people I've ever met in my entire lifetime. She's an amazing person. Like I'm pretty sure if I lived closer to her, she's in Australia, that we would have a friendship forever, like because that's what I feel. You know what I mean? Because I trust her. But there are not very many people, that I would let get that close, that I trust that much, to allow to stay in my life, really. And so I don't allow myself to develop too many types of relationships. And that's, it's like people kind of, I don't know how they would perceive me, you know what I mean? Like I'm nice and I'm a good person, but I don't go out of my way to make lasting relationships. And I think it's just because I don't trust them, because I've always been alone. I've always been on my own. I have a hard time actually having somebody around me all the time. My sweetheart, he's very much his own person. So we've been together 16 years, but he gives me my space. Like he realized from the very beginning, and he's the same way. He needs his space, and he's terminally ill. He's dying, so he needs lots of space. And he needs his space, I need mine, and so it works. It completely works. But I can't have somebody smothering me or crowding me or anything like that, because I'm not used to it, because I grew up alone. I grew up on my own, man. There was no hugs and kisses and come sit by mom and let's read a book, and man, I didn't want to sit by my mother. That'd be dangerous, you know what I mean? And there was none of that for me. You know what I mean? I was just this loose little kid, running loose, doing whatever, with no guidance, and really just watching out so I wouldn't get hurt, because I was just a convenient punching bag for my mother. So, I don't even know how to nurture relationships. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't taught that. So I'm kind of learning over the years, but it's taken, a long time to get to where I'm at today, right? But that's why I just keep going, one day at a time, and that's all you can do, and just we just have to do the best we can, and we have to make sure that we reach out and that we allow ourselves to get help, if we need help, when we need to allow ourselves to to enjoy this life, And so that's where I'm at, you know what I mean? Is working through, getting through the hard stuff so that I can move on and find some joy and find some peace and find some good stuff, you know what I mean? And we'll pick up here Monday. So have a great weekend, everybody. Tonight I have an awesome guest on my show, Beverly Searle, and she's got a great product that she's actually got on the market. It's called Forget Talking Therapy. Even though I think talking therapy is important, but she's talking about visualizations, and I know that that's also very awesome, and that's part of the reason why I've been able to do the healing work that I've done is through visualizations. So I believe in what she's doing. I think she's got some great stuff there, and I think she's very knowledgeable. So that's tonight, and then Kate Swift will be on Sunday morning. Kate Swift out of the UK, founder of This Tangled Web. She's going to be talking about her book, Nobody's Ragdoll, and her own story of child abuse and sibling incest, right? So, and we're both survivors of that, so we're both gonna take a look at her book, and so that's Kate Swift out of the UK. So I hope that you will be here, and that's Sunday morning, kind of early. So I hope if you're not able to make the show, I hope you can at least catch the archive, right? But take care of yourselves. If you're having a hard time and you're thinking, man, I can't do this. There's just no way. I don't even know if I can do another day because I've been there ready to kill myself. I was suicidal for many, many years. I grew up in a home where suicide was an option and people were always talking about suicide, and they were also trying to kill themselves, and they were also trying to kill me. I grew up in a murderous, suicidal home, right? So it was actually just normal for me to think about things like that. And so I was suicidal and had suicidal tendencies for a long time until the age of 41. And that's when I decided that I said, no more. My parents are not going to win this fight. They're not going to get me to kill myself, which is what they wanted to do. That's why 2 of my brothers killed themselves. I'm not going to let my parents win this fight. No way. That's like having them stand up before me and me getting to take a glove and slap them in the face with and say, burn on you. You know what I mean? Because you couldn't kill me, and you couldn't get me to kill myself, and you can't even hurt me now because I'm moving on and I'm having a good life. And that is such a burn on them because that's the ultimate burn. My success and my victory over what they did to me and over what my brother did to me is actually my justice. It's my justice. It says, you know what? You could not destroy me. And I started, when I was 41, I realized that. And I was like, oh, my God, thank God, because I was going to let them kill me at the age of, I was letting them kill me, as an adult. Like as a child, I couldn't really help it, what they were doing to me. But, as an adult, I was letting them get away with what they did and basically falling for it. I was going to kill myself, which is exactly what they set us up to do, right? My 2 parents. So, don't allow yourself to be destroyed by your abuse. Do not. If you have to get a therapist, get a therapist. If you have to get a counselor, get a counselor. If you have to have group support, get some group support. What you think about what you need, and you do what you need to get help, right? If you need to just reach out to friends, well, find some really trustworthy friends. Really make sure they're trustworthy and that they're good people. Really do a good check on them. Don't tell just anybody your stuff because they can, sometimes they will turn it around and use it to sort of hurt you, and that's not right, but people do things like that. So make sure, you get some good people in your life. Surround yourself with some good people, who are going to help you, right? And don't give up. Not ever. Don't even make that an option. Just absolutely do not allow yourself to give up, We need to keep going forward, at our own pace, at our own steady pace, and learn how to do this. Other people are doing it. That's why I said, hey, other people are doing this. I can do this. There's no reason. There's other people out here who have survived some horrific stuff. And, look at them. They're doing it. So why can't I? That was the question. I guess I'm always asking questions. That's probably what keeps me alive. But the thing is, yeah, exactly. Why can't I? They're healing. They're moving on. They have hard times too. They're getting through. Well, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's what I hope that you will do. Do not ever give up. And, look for those better days. And, we're all going to have bad days, right? So that's why you have to have a support mechanism. You have to have somebody you can talk to. You have to have, even if it's a crisis line, whatever you do. But make sure that you do pick up the phone or you do get in touch with somebody and get some support. You know what I mean? Like we so deserve it, right? So have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you tonight. Bye-bye.